Okay. Okay. Well, hello everyone. I just want to thank you for coming tonight. Good evening. I'm Mayor Chairperson of the Glen Cove Industrial Development Agency and Local Economic Assistance Corporation. It is Tuesday, June 24th, and we are holding today's IDA LEAC board meeting in the second floor conference room of City Hall. This meeting is being live streamed and recorded. Let us call the meeting to order at 5:31 p.m. Will the secretary please call the roll?
Lisa Trappatello.
Here.
Tom Scott.
Here.
Dave Jimenez.
Here.
John Fielding.
Here.
Jim Capiello.
Here.
And Chairperson Panzarella.
Here.
I'm expecting Vincent Hartley. I think he's running late.
Okay. Listen, I hope he makes the smart choice. I make a motion, no, he's calling me. I make a motion to approve the minutes of the IDA LEAC meeting held May 13th, 2025, and I ask for a second.
Second.
Motion is seconded by Tom Scott. Are there any questions on those minutes? Will the secretary please call the roll?
Lisa Trappatello.
Aye.
Tom Scott.
Aye.
Dave Jimenez.
Aye.
John Fielding.
Aye.
Jim Capiello.
Aye.
And Chairperson Panzarella.
I vote aye. That motion was carried. Luann Fenman, please provide the members with our executive director's report. Best executive director in the world.
Hello, everyone. How you doing? Good.
We're great.
This is fairly short. I conducted some site visits at the Regency and the Garvey's Point Public Amenities. And I am setting something up for AMC Theater, hopefully in July. I don't have any update on 115 Glen Street. The way we left things was that they wanted the opportunity to resubmit something to us. So that is where it is. And there was a preliminary meeting with Conoco Minolta, with the mayor's office, not a transaction committee meeting. They basically just came in to come talk to us. And they want to come to the board at a future meeting over the summer, good evening, to basically give us a little bit of an overview of what their plans are with the property. But nothing formal yet. We just had a pretty short.
You said
preliminary
Regency, then what, then AMC?
So I did a site visit at the Regency. It was that wonderful day we had there.
Correct.
Next. It was nice.
Okay.
And then the Garvey's Point Public Amenities.
Okay, thank you.
That was another hot day. I walked around the Esplanade and going to go over to, the movie theater and the stores over there next in July. Round out some site visits for the summer. And that's all I have. Does anyone have any questions? We're going to be covering other ground later in the meeting.
So, no further questions. So, Margot, can you please provide the members with her finance report?
Sure. Good evening, everyone. The following finance report is an update for the IDA from budget to actual for the period of January through May. The revenue of January through May, total revenue of $60,000 compared to the annual budget of $317,000. Out of that revenue, we have escrow fee revenue, $15.7K, and professional fees compared to the budget of $110K. Other revenue, $34,000 from admin fees compared to the budget of $178,000. We have interest income of $10.7 compared to the budget of $29,000. In terms of expenses for the period of January through May, we have $92,000 compared to the annual budget of $313,000. Out of the 92, the expenses are salaries and benefits of $74,000 compared to the annual budget of $176,000. We have professional expenditures incurred for $17.5K compared to the annual budget of $132,000. No professional fees include accountant, legal, and escrow professional fees. No escrow expenses included are for $15.7K. Other expenses incurred are for $884 compared to the annual budget of $5,000. Other expenses include office, copier, and admin expenses. Thus, year to date, January through May, there is an operating loss of $32,000. Please keep in mind much of the revenue comes from project closings and has the ability to fluctuate throughout the year and from year to year. Please let me know if you have any questions on the IDA. Otherwise, I will get to Bigwood. Gateway budget to actual January through May, total revenue is 3.2 thousand. Out of the admin fee revenue, there's 2,000 compared to the budget of 2,000. Escrow fee revenue is 0 at this point. Interest income is roughly 1,500 compared to the annual budget of 3,500. Expenses are roughly 2,200, which consists of admin fee expense of 2,000 and professional fees of 250. Thus, there's a year-to-date surplus of roughly $1,300. So that covers for the IDA and Gateway for the period of January to May. Please let me know if you have any questions.
Does anyone have any questions? If there are no further questions, let's move on to unfinished business. Tonight's unfinished business matters are Garvey's Block F update, Georgia Green Ventures supportive of for sale housing development. Garvey's RXR Ardent Owner LLC Blocks D&E update and transfer by RXR 45 HHR to 45 Glen LLC. That's the brewery property closing. So will Ann or Millen provide the members with the status of these matters?
All right, so Garvey's Point Block F update. These are, to orient everyone again, the 56 affordable condominium units that will be built on Dixon Street, roughly across the street from the existing 55 rental units. As it stands right now, I think we're still heading towards a closing. I'm sort of looking in Joe's direction. We still have the outstanding matters of the regulatory agreement and the intercreditor agreements that we've been talking about. Essentially, they're with Trustees Council / Georgia Green Ventures Council / Millen. They've been working through it. They continue to work through it. I know State Homes and Community Renewal and their other subsidy, the other subsidy sources are also working through it with their council and their lender, Webster Bank. So it's all in progress. It's not ready, obviously, for consent tonight with the board, but it's all in progress. And, I speak to Dave pretty regularly. I'm still optimistic for some kind of fall closing, if not the end of the year. We have been anticipating it to close this year, and I hope that's still the case. Does anyone have any questions?
Yes, I do. My last notes, I have that the Georgia Green was hoping to come before this board in February. What's going on here?
I think it's a fair question. I'm not sure how much I can disclose in the public session because it does involve some proprietary matters. What I will say is that I think, Block F has its complications. I think one of the complications is obviously the closing with RXR. I really can't speak to that directly. We are, diligently working through, the agreements. When I speak to Dave, he doesn't seem to think that the IDA matters are what's holding things up necessarily, although those matters do have to get wrapped up. I think, as you know, Tom, we did the consent for this project back in 2023. So, obviously it's been delayed and we'd like to see it close. Pam and I spoke with Dave pretty recently, and he maintains that he is firmly committed to the project.
Right.
Would the board like me to request anything of Georgia's time regarding Block F? Would you like them to attend our next meeting to give an update directly?
Yes.
Yes, we would like.
I think that's fair. Okay.
He's been very optimistic to us.
I think that he's working to still pencil out the project given, his costs, the subsidies, he's getting the case, from the state, obviously the purchase price for RXR, there's lots of moving pieces, is my understanding, without getting into the weeds. All right?
Okay, that's number one.
Yeah, I'm not finished yet. Also, I see that Georgia Green has requested a revised regulatory agreement. Why?
Georgia Green has requested a revised regulatory agreement. I'm not following. The regulatory agreement's been revised many, many times between all of the legal parties involved. The regulatory agreement is going to set forth a pilot schedule that's required by state HCR in order to build these units. The master tax agreement says that the pilot for the affordable condominiums is otherwise applicable taxes, okay? We went through an exercise that lasted a year and a half to try to determine that it's indeterminable for a number of reasons, right? So the state has actually said, this is the tax schedule that will permit for this project based on the income limits and based on all of the other factors that go into penciling out the project, right?
Right.
So the state's provided a schedule. At this time, we need trustees, council, and the bondholders to sign off on that regulatory agreement. Webster Bank, I think as Millen explained last meeting, also had to get up to speed, their lender, right? And since then, there's been some headway between the attorneys, but they're still working through some changes. So the reason why I haven't distributed, I feel like I get different versions of the regulatory agreement every few months. And when I talked to Millen about it, we did not feel it was ready to be distributed as of yet. If you would like me to distribute to you under separate cover, the latest version of the regulatory agreement, I'd be happy to do so.
Yes, please.
Okay. Just keep in mind it's under revision. All right, fire away, Tom. What else?
I'm done.
You sure? All right.
Let's move on to the next topic.
I think we have ArtStar with us tonight. Hi, Peter. Hi, Joe. I want to give you the opportunity to sort of give a little overview to the board. Okay? Yeah, come. Millen's going to come here, but you can pull
We have
up.
a seat, I have a seat here too. I don't,
Okay?
if he gets here, we'll move. No, sit right here.
Okay, you can have it.
And if you want, Joe, you can sit here for now. We can put Millen over here.
I can have it, yeah. You can hear. I have my
Bottle of water.
Oh, this is okay.
You show us water?
I thought about just leaving and driving there.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening. Joe Alston, I sent a letter on May 12th requesting that the agency consent to a transfer of lots D and E, which were intended to be a 101 unit rental building with some public area in D and a small retail area in D. Requested that provide detail on the current structure of the owner of the property and the proposed new structure. As a consequence of that letter, I got an email from Millen asking for a lot of additional information. I had given 2 structure charts, the current and the future. Millen wanted a lot more backup information, which we have subsequently provided. I understand from him that he's shared much of it, if not all of it, with the board members. And that includes a draft limited liability company for the new entity, certain financial statements with regard to both the current partner and the prospective partner, a copy of the term sheet for the financing, and certain other information with regard to this entity, Chuo Litochi 2 LLC, which is an entity that's going to become a partner. Millen has subsequently asked me for additional information on the upper level part of the new structure, and I provided that to them. And basically, it's, RXR and its current partner are staying in for a minority interest in the property. The Japanese company is taking majority interest, and RXR VO Partners, which is one of the 2 members of the minority. So the minority interest will own 21.5% of this new entity. The Japanese entity will own the balance, 78.5%. And of the 21.5%, Millen asked for information on the makeup of that entity. And that entity is made up of the current partner, Arden Dev, which was the partner with RXR, and the new entity, RXR VO Properties Holdings. and that Arts RBO Properties Holdings is essentially a partnership of Dial Capital Partners, which is a very significant investment fund, and RXR. That really is
What's the name of the
where we are
investment
right
fund,
now.
Dial?
And the DYAL is a subsidiary fund of a company called Blue Owl. And Blue Owl is an even more significant investment company. And it's a company that tends to take minority interest in development projects. So in this case, it's a member of a minority interest. The RXR entity will be the operating manager, be responsible for construction, for completing the financing, for doing everything. So really, in terms of the relationship, getting approvals, which we're in very good shape on, and actually doing the construction, RXR takes the lead. The other entities are essentially passive in that process.
Maybe just to add a little color on it. So with respect to the Arden, as we call it, which you call D&E, as we sit here today, we have Chiyoda Tenouchi, the Japanese investor that we've done many deals with, ready to close tomorrow. We have M&T Bank with the construction financing ready to close tomorrow. I've also just mentioned to this board that M&T Bank construction financing for Village Square. So we have a relationship with them. We know how it works. And we are subject to the approval of this board to start this project. I'd also say just a little bit of history. This project, as some of you may have been through it, we had come to the planning board and then ultimately to the IDA 3, 4, 5 years ago to actually take the 101 unit original contemplation and the 56 workforce contemplation and build a 172 unit building. We received approval from the planning board to move forward with that. It was when we got to the IDA, unfortunately, there was some miscommunication relative to the pilot payments. That deal took too much time. We lost our investor, we lost our construction loan. We then came back to the planning board in December of 2023 to basically present what was previously approved in 2016, which is the 101 unit multifamily and the 56 workforce that was mentioned earlier. We received approval on that after the 30 to 60 day challenge period. We surrendered a payment to the city of Glen Cove for $750,000, which was quote unquote a community benefits payment. Call it what you wish, but essentially we did pay that fee. And then we've spent, unfortunately, the last year and a half, with the economic diversions that are out there, finding equity, finding a construction lender, as well as going through the Nassau County system for the subdivision of some of the tax lots that are there. And to Ann's comment earlier about Georgia Green, and I don't want to speak for them directly, although I own the land that they're going to build on, they too are waiting for these tax lots. The subdivision. The good news is we had a planning board meeting last week, which we received unanimous approval on, relative to the extension of these of the PUD that was originally approved, which allowed us to go back to Nassau County. So we went back to Nassau County this week, and we understand that we should get our tax lot numbers within the next week or so.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah.
The subdivision went into Nassau County.
Correct. It's into Nassau County.
The
Peters County, Michael was there
Okay.
physically.
And I also forgot to mention quickly that Block F site plans are into the planning board for review right now.
Sure.
So those are being reviewed by the planning board. Davis put those in. Okay.
So we,
How long was the extension for?
the extension, I'm sorry, I'm not gonna be able to tell you, but
Most
it
of the
was
end of
390 days.
I actually have it. I have it. It's December. I believe they extended it through a date in December.
For the end of the year?
Yeah,
Essentially, no, you made it.
which we didn't feel we needed, but we asked for because we think post this meeting or a subsequent meeting, we're ready to go.
So roughly it's a 6-month extension.
Right, roughly 6 months. So we have our construction financing. We have our additional equity. We have our joint venture. We have our GMP, which is the construction contract at the end of the day, fully executed. And moments after this board approves bringing in Giotinucci, and I guess, Mark, so
It's really
Do they
the
have to
time
bring in
structure, there will be a conveyance of the property
right,
to that new entity, so.
we would be ready to start construction. We did an analysis under the new, Pam, and I love you for this, under the new permit fees that have been adopted by the city, and our permit fee would be roughly $1.1 million. So essentially, when we close down on the structure, we have all sorts of legal bills, but we have the original $750,000 that we gave to the city for the original PUD as a loan back. We have the $1.2 million roughly of permit fee that we would be sending to the city. I spoke with Ann and the mayor yesterday on a conference call. We owe the IDA approximately, Margot, $120,000 I'm gonna round, plus some other fees that Ann needs to get to me. Our commitment is that we would pay that subject to the consent of this board prior to or at that closing. So we would clean up anything and everything that's outstanding between the IDA, the legal bills from the IDA, et cetera. I'd also like to just mention before we dive into D&E to the extent you have questions, I'd also like to mention that SAR made a submission months ago to the city regarding Block A, which again, we've had some conversation. I know Millen, by the way. Millen and Peter had some conversation, and then I had further conversation with Ann and Pam, the mayor, and essentially we had proposed Block A to be approximately 500 units, so some multifamily and some for sale. The city has gotten back to us and said it was too much of a lift at the end of the day to put that sort of density there. And I literally am in design as we speak to come up with something that's closer to the original approval, which is 346. It won't be all for sale because the market's not there. I'm still sitting on 20 odd pieces of the Beacon that discounting, significantly to be able to get sold. I think the Block A at this point is a better location, and I think we'll see that sort of activity. But we're trying to come up with a scenario where we have maybe 400 units, 100 for sale, 300 for rent. That would be able to support something that we could give to the city and ultimately to the bondholders that to restructure. So maybe I'll just pause there and see if there's any questions from this group.
Do we have existing financials on this investment?
On Giotinucci? Yes.
Yes.
Those are distributed to
Yeah.
board members in Millens.
I mean, Tom, they are a multi-billion-dollar company. It's not, we're bringing in somebody, at the end of the day, that doesn't have the wherewithal. In fact, literally, their chairman was out here 2 Fridays ago with me. We have some other big investments with that inside the city, and some of they're working with us right now. I'm sure you've read about it, but we're doing some conversions in New York City where we're taking old office buildings and turning them into multifamily. 5 Times Square has been highly publicized.
I've heard about it, yes.
Yeah, and they're working with us on.
You paid too much for that building.
That's not, that.
Jody, where were you a couple years ago?
roughly, what is their investment in this?
30 million.
30 million?
It's a small building. I think it's a $70 million building at the end of the day, when all is said, it's only 101 units, you know, and then the parking lot, you're familiar with it, the parking lot and the little 2,500 square foot kiosk, which we don't know what it's gonna be, but it's probably gonna be some sort of food type of situation.
So how do we get the ball rolling here? What's the holdup?
I don't know. We're
Can I
ready to
can
go.
I ask a question, actually?
Sure.
Just so I'm clear, because I was looking at all these org charts today and trying to make sense of them. This new structure here, okay, you're taking out RXR GIP,
Correct.
and you're replacing that with RXR VO Properties Holdings LLC,
Correct.
right?
Yep.
Okay.
Which is, I would say to you, much more healed than RXR GIP.
I mean, I guess at this point, Camille, we can hand out the,
What happens to RXR?
We have
RXR GIP, at the conclusion of this transaction, will still be the owner of Block A, what we refer to as number
These are all
11,
sent
which
to
is Restaurant at the Point, the old days,
actually.
and Block J,
That's GIP.
And the public use easement.
and the public use easement area.
And the money's
Just
still
to
gonna
be
be
clear-
there to maintain the public use area?
Well, I mean, you know,
Some of these are-
it's no secret that we've been struggling on the money for the public use easement area. However, I think if you were to drive down there or take a walk, and I thought I heard Ann say she recently walked it, the maintenance is ongoing and being done, despite the fact that we're in the rears of some of the payments that we owe. And our goal at the end of the day is to find the right deal that we can put together on Block A, where we can clear all that out, you know,
Keep
that's.
that fund maintained because that was supposed to be done for perpetuity.
Well,
Sorry.
we're $1.3 million in arrears of HOA
Yeah.
right now. Right.
Well aware.
So I just want to mention that we did hand out these documents. Some of these are not published materials. They were emailed under separate cover as such, so that's why, okay.
Right, so if you hand it back to me or
Yeah.
something you need to see, let me know.
But I understand wanting to look at the org chart as we're discussing.
But just to sort of put a fine point on this, right? So we've been sitting around with no construction activity. We have H&I Harbor Landing, chock full, 99% full all the time. Great people, they love living there. We have the Beacon, which is 167 units. I have 21 left, so I've rented about 10, so it's really full at this period of point in time. We continue to maintain all the grounds, do the things that we're supposed to do. And, you know, we're sitting poised to start construction the day after this board allows us to bring in this partner at the end of the day, because I believe that's all we're asking for. We have, I will say this openly, our permit, so what the city does with us is, because we're so large in scale, your staff here does not review our plans. You subcontract it out. In this case, it was subcontracted to H2M, and which we paid $35,000 to have that done. We gave that money in advance. H2M is, I'm gonna say 92% completed with their review, where we could pull the permit. But I will say, we still have been unable, and Dave Gallo, for his project, is the same situation as mine, unable to get a water availability letter from the city. So when you talk about development, you talk about Block A, you talk about all these things that we all want to do and we all want to build, you know, you can't build a building without a water availability letter, which we anticipated we had when we signed up this PUD in 2016. I'm not saying we're not going to get it. I'm just bringing it up as a potential issue relative to our execution of the permit, which we're ready to pull once H2M completes their review, which I anticipate, next week or so.
I'm not aware of where the review is, so I have nothing to say about it.
I can only tell you what I know, Tom,
I just want to ask a couple of questions with this org chart. Which entity is the property manager?
Well, the manager of the owner is, I mean, after this is completed? Yes. Okay, after this is completed, there will be an entity called RXR Garden JV LLC, which will be the member of the owner.
But you mean MM LLC? Right?
Yes, I
That's
think
the
so.
managing
The managing member.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah. He'll be managing the property?
Well, I mean, much like we do our other properties, Tom, I mean, we subcontract to a Gray Star or a Bozzuto, but ultimately, it's reporting up to RXR, right? I mean, you look across the street, that building is managed by Bozzuto, but it's reporting into the RXR corporate.
Okay, so which entity on this chart is going to be managing the property?
Owner. So RXR Garden is our owner.
Right.
Thank you. And all the operations and funds and money will be in which entity?
Money will be an owner. So
Money will be owner.
Owner. So owner will be getting a construction loan. Owner will be responsible for construction. And that's what the relationship is. Owner will get the permit.
Right, the one at the very bottom of the chart. Okay.
I guess one thing, I'm just going to say this broadly, is that Camille and I need the folks that background checks are required for to be identified and to fill out forms, because to date, we have not received that information.
I don't see how you think a public company can do a background check, but I guess I may learn something new today.
But no, and the question was, I think we didn't learn until today that Arden Dev 2024 Corp is owned, that Dial Capital Partners is Blue Owl. And so I agree, a public company, we don't need to do an individual background check.
And Chuo Natochi also.
Blue Owl,
And Chuo Natochi.
I agree with that as well.
So those are really the only two.
So, Millen, are you confirming that no individual background checks beyond what we've already done in the past are required at this time?
Yes.
Just to be clear.
Yeah.
Okay.
These are,
Thanks,
just
John.
for the record, because these are multi-billion-dollar investments. We're not talking about,
I just need someone to tell me that's the case, and we can close it.
And you did the checks on the two owners of Arden Dev 2024.
Well, right, those were done with the
a
prior.
long time ago.
Right.
We brought them in, Rob and Zach.
No individual.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
One of the other things, barring other questions that I have requested and I would request to this board, I really don't, and pardon my ignorance or whatever you want to call it at the end of the day, I really don't want to wait until the next meeting that you all have to basically get the resolution adopted. If it can't be done this evening at this meeting, I'll respect that, but I also would request gratefully and gracefully a special meeting to be able to adopt and resolve what I need here, because we're ready to start the work. And I really don't want to be in a situation where I was 3 years ago, where this thing lags and lags and lags, and all of a sudden I lose my equity guy, I lose my lender or something like that. I've got everybody at the table. I could close literally on the 30th if I had a resolution allowing me to do that tonight.
We can all get to that?
Sorry,
We can all get to that?
we can all get to that.
So now I would ask Ms. Steinman, what do we need to adopt the resolution?
or Bill?
I think that we need to discuss some of this later on in the meeting.
Okay.
Okay?
Drafting a resolution will take, an hour.
And like we
Given
told
what
you,
is
we can look at dates and hold the board for potential special
Again, I'm
meetings.
asking the board, I'm
It's,
not disrespecting the executive director or the chairwoman. I'm here in front of the board,
We spoke
I'm
about,
allowed in the
Yeah.
meeting,
we
and I'm
discussed
just
that.
asking the board that
Anyway,
if they could find, I know it's a holiday coming up July
Well-
4th, and it's summertime.
We discussed that yesterday. People need time to get the papers to look through.
So then, it looks like we're gonna have to have a special meeting.
we'll
In
discuss
fairness to RXR,
Possibly,
it.
right?
Yeah, we'll discuss
we
it.
won't make them wait a month.
We'll discuss
I
it.
would appreciate it if I didn't have to wait a month, but I'm at your mercy.
We are taking that under, I think we are taking that under advisement and we will discuss this evening,
Yeah, correct.
okay? While you're here, can I ask for the update on the brewery? Because that was our next agenda item.
Yeah, so I know and I believe, unless I'm mistaken, that all of the easements and everything that we needed to get executed is executed and finalized, Peter Miller.
The Bollard issue is over.
That took care of that.
There's an easement agreement that had comments, I saw that.
Yeah, did you send that back? I had commented, the bottom line is that the easement agreement is either done or can be signed in the next,
Yeah,
this
this was
week.
sent to you yesterday, right? Did Michael send it to you yesterday?
I saw a marked up copy of Dylan's. I didn't see the latest, and I was gonna share the latest with the board members just as an FYI, because, the issue's kind of been cold for a while, so it's going to distribute it.
So we do still have a valid contract with the buyer.
Yeah.
Although I've been keeping them on IV with some oxygen because it's taken so long. And I believe that if we were to call for a closing, once we had whatever was required from y'all, we would be able to close inside 30 days on the brewery.
The issue with. I think
And that's just
brewery-
about, one second, Nolan, I'm sorry, just for the board's benefit, that's just about us recycling, right? Recycling money, to put more into the projects that we have here, right? I mean, we're selling the building, just as if we were to go to sell H&I someday, right? Once buildings are stabilized and we're not in the building, we're not in the business unless it's in a QOZ, an opportunity zone or something like that. Typically, if you look at our history, other than office buildings, we'll build these multifamily buildings, we'll get them stabilized, we'll refi them, we'll take our equity back, and then eventually we'll sell them to a third party based on NOI. And I can tell you, the NOI at the brewery and the NOI at the H&I do very well. It's the rentals have gone just incredible.
These are the original investors that the board already consented to.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Joe, I will tell you, we are going to have a problem closing both the brewery and blocks D&E with the trustees council fees.
But again, I got a bill the other day from the brewery, to the breweries, the trustee council fee for $82,000. I'd like to know what the hell he was doing with she. But again, if that has to be subject to, that being part of the closing statement, then so be it. I mean, we can make a decision whether we close or not. And
I think the brewery is a little less than that, I think D&E.
no, it's
was like-
82,000.
No, it's the brewery bill.
You sent me the brewery bill.
No, I think so, because I just looked at them right before this meeting.
I unfortunately remember things too well.
D&E is going to be a similar number.
But again, I look at this board and say to y'all, as a business guy, here you are sitting here, walking down a path, right? And, like no idea that some sledgehammer is gonna smack you square in the face for $82,000 or $100,000. It's like, the longer we procrastinate, it's the worse it's gonna be. And frankly, I'm saying this in public, we're gonna lose Dave Gallo if he's got similar numbers at the end of the day, and we may lose the workforce,
They're not the agency's bills. These are bills that we've seen, and quite frankly, we're shocked. I think, from a
The
staff
bondholder should be-
perspective.
Nobody's controlling them.
The bondholder should be more shocked than yours. It's coming out.
Well, I don't believe we have the authority
No, we don't.
to control them. We can say to them, and I think we have multiple times, that even the general bills from our perspective are enormous.
Look, Millen, just to be clear, as it relates to D&E, I'm gonna focus on D&E for a minute because that's really my focus right now, more so than the brewery. I emailed Ann today and I emailed Margot earlier in the week. I said, get everything on one piece of paper for me and tell me what other fees I have, including that. Put it in a spreadsheet, send it to me so I can put it on the closing statement. Put it on the closing statement, pay my bill of closing. Your consent could be subject to, 3 days of, if you
Bills
would,
being paid.
me paying my bill, so no problem paying it. As long as we can get going.
Okay, so in order for you to get going, as Ms. Fangman has stated, there's some open questions that the board has to address. And when we send those questions to you, I hope they're addressed tentatively.
I don't know what the questions are, so I can't comment on them.
I don't either.
But I can tell you with certainty, just to be clear, that if the questions are, I have pilot payments due on Block A, or I have HOA fees due from Block A,
Right.
none of that is intended to be paid at the closing of D&D. I can tell you that now, so that I don't have to waste your time or anybody else's time. We'll pick up our toys and move to the next project. I mean, we're counting on finding a resolution on Block A. When we find a resolution on Block A, that's when we'll have the opportunity to clean it up.
Am I gonna be alive?
I don't know if I'm gonna be alive, Tom, but all I can tell you is, it's funny he says that. I know we're on video. So I'm doing this big deal in North Carolina, as you know, and I have these donut hole pieces of property that I have to buy. And the guy, so I sat with a guy last week, I was down there, and he said to me, look, I'll sell you my guy in the house. And the first thing I asked him was, how can I help, At any rate, I'm here, I'm sitting with you all. I think it's wrong for me not to say it, then have you guys, go in a separate session later and have this conversation, and have Millen send me, Peter, emails or whatever about this stuff. We're ready. I'll end with this, right? We're poised and ready to start building at the Circle, okay? A really pretty building. Close with Dave Gallo and get his lot movement on the 56 units, okay? So almost simultaneously, we've been working out construction buyouts together to try to, use economies of scale. We've got $1.2 million set aside to pay to the city for their permit fee, which I know with certainty is in the city's budget. To anticipate that, Dave's is probably going to be around 600 or 700. We got about $2 million in the budget for the city in permit fees, rec fees, etc., and pay off whatever we owe the IDA and, the trustee or whatever the case may be. So you've heard that from me, and I'm going to stand behind it. Good.
Thank you.
Okay. Peter, why don't you, if you want to, send me a letter telling me why you think that the trustees' fees are not appropriate. We can send that on to Creamer Levin and have a discussion.
Especially if they're gonna be redoing the same amount for every single closing that happens, despite the fact they only need to look at the documents once. So,
Mayor and Ann, just before I walk out, I would just ask you both, if you could be so kind to get back to me
We
tomorrow
certainly will.
relative to your discussions
Probably
tonight. So-
Thursday, because
Okay, that's fine.
she doesn't work tomorrow.
That's fine.
And I won't bother her on Wednesday.
Right, and that's fine.
Well, it'll give the board members following our discussions tonight an opportunity to get back to us, because I'm really the messenger here, I'm the conduit.
Let's just say by
So-
Friday, you can let me know what direction I'm going in.
It'll be Thursday.
That's even better. And again, if I can ask if the direction is the right direction with as I think of it, the right direction. And we could have we can ask you all to come back in 2 weeks or something for a special meeting in 5 minutes and be done. I appreciate that too, so. I'll leave it with
Thank
that.
you, Joe.
Thank you.
Right.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you all.
Enjoy the rest of your night, stay cool.
So don't go on the main floor, has no air conditioning, and we have 45 citations.
And you have a council meeting tonight, right?
Oh,
Good Lord.
that'll be not much on the agenda.
Thanks again. Good seeing you all.
Bye-bye, thank you.
Yeah.
See you in the neighborhood.
It's gonna be crazy. Take care. Bye-bye, Joe.
Thanks, everybody.
Stay well.
Good
Bye-bye, take care.
All right, so, do the members have any further questions? If there are no further questions, do we have any new business to discuss?
We do not.
Okay, so if there's no new business, I think we would like to go into executive session to discuss.
We have to discuss proposed or pending litigation and contractual matters.
Contractual matters and pending litigation.
Seeking legal advice.
I make a motion to into executive session.
What is it?
May I have a second?
Second.
Here, if you, I mean, I.
Okay, will the clerk
Thank you,
please
Margo.
poll the board?
But on that check, I'll sign it even if it's wrong.
Scott.
Thank you.
When you first, you always.
Clerk, please poll the board.
We're gonna let Margo
Yes,
lead.
right.
Thank you, Margo.
Thank you.
Okay, I think the vote is unanimous to go into executive session.
Okay,
So we enter executive session at 6:17 PM. Please pause the live stream.